The morning air on New Haven Colony carried the sweet scent of blooming earth roses, mixed with the metallic temps of recycled atmosphere. Dr. Kim. Hannah sipped her synthetic coffee as she watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. 3 years on this distant world, and she still marveled at how humanity had carved out a piece of home among the stars. The colony sprawled across rolling hills dotted with silver domes and transparent walkways. 50,000 souls called this place home. Scientists, engineers, teachers, and their families who had journeyed 47 light-years from Earth to unlock the secrets of the universe. Children's laughter echoed from the hydroponics gardens, where they played hide-and-seek among towering tomato vines and corn stalks that grew impossibly tall in the lighter gravity. Hannah's Xenolinguistics lab sat atop the central communications hub, its walls lined with holographic displays showing language patterns from across known space. She had dedicated her life to understanding alien communication. Though in 3 years they had encountered nothing more exciting than bacterial life forms and some peculiar crystal formations that might have been ancient fossils. Her morning routine was interrupted by an urgent chime from her console. The Deep Space Monitoring Array had detected something unusual, electromagnetic patterns that didn't match any natural phenomenon. "Dr. Kim, we need you in the command center immediately," came the voice of Communications Officer Park Min-ho through her cum badge. His usually calm demeanor carried an edge of excitement mixed with concern. Hannah rushed through the colony's main thoroughfare, past the morning market where vendors sold fresh hydroponic vegetables and homemade pastries. Children on their way to school waved at her, their backpacks bouncing as they skipped along the walkways. Everything felt so normal, so peaceful she had no idea how drastically their world was about to change. The command center buzzed with activity. Colony Commander Lee Daeho stood before the main display, his weathered face creased with concentration. Around him, technicians worked frantically at their stations, trying to make sense of the signals flooding their receivers. "What do we have?" Min-ho Hannah asked, sliding into her workstation. "Unknown transmission, repeating every 37 seconds. It's definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, but unlike anything in our databases." Park Min-ho transferred the data to her console, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Hannah's breath caught as the signal patterns materialized before her. The mathematical precision was beautiful, complex harmonics, layered with emotional undertones that spoke of desperation and hope. Her translation algorithms, designed to decode alien languages, began working overtime. "Commander, this is incredible," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement and growing dread. "The linguistic structure suggests a highly advanced civilization, but there's something else. ... She paused, double-checking her readings. The emotional context embedded in the transmission was unmistakable, pure terror mixed with fading hope. "Sir, they're calling themselves the Relani? Their message is a distress call, but it's more than that. They're describing the systematic destruction of their homeworld by something called the Dominion Empire. Billions dead, cities turned to ash, children, ... double quotes, her voice broke. They're begging anyone who receives this message for sanctuary." Commander Lee's expression darkened. "How far away are they?" The signal originated from the outer system. "If they're traveling at sublight speeds, they could be here within hours." As if summoned by her words, the colony's early warning system activated. A new contact had appeared on their sensors, a small craft, badly damaged, limping toward New Haven on failing engines. 3 hours later, Hannah stood in the northern plains, alongside hundreds of other colonists. The alien vessel had carved a smoking furrow through the grassland before coming to rest against a cluster of boulder formations. The ship itself was unlike anything humans had imagined. Organic curves, blended with crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with fading light. A section of the hull dissolved like morning mist, and the survivors emerged. Hannah gasped. The Relani were breathtakingly beautiful, tall, graceful beings whose translucent skin contained swirling patterns of light. They moved with fluid grace despite their obvious injuries, their large eyes reflecting intelligence and profound sadness. there. Leader approached Commander Lee, each step leaving faint luminescent footprints in the soil. When it spoke, its voice carried the musical quality of wind chimes mixed with human speech. Please, we are Relani, survivors of Calarian Prime. The Dominion burns our worlds, kills our young ones. We seek mercy from unknown friends. Tears of liquid light streamed down its crystalline face. We have nowhere else to run. The colonists murmured among themselves, some fearful, others curious. Children pressed forward despite their parents' gentle restraint, drawn by the aliens. Ethereal beauty. Little Park Sumen, barely 8 years old, with pigtails bouncing, broke free from her mother's grasp. She walked up to a young Relani who cowered behind its elder. The alien child's light patterns flickered weakly, indicating fear and exhaustion. Without hesitation, Suman offered her most precious possession, a stuffed rabbit named Hoppy that had traveled with her from Earth. Here, she said simply. Hoppy makes me feel better when I'm scared. The Relani child's eyes widened, and its light patterns shifted to something resembling wonder. It accepted the toy with trembling hands, clutching it to its chest as its glow steadied and strengthened. Commander Lee watched the exchange, his decision crystallizing in that moment. He looked at his colonists, teachers, scientists, engineers, and children who had built a life of peace and discovery among the stars. He thought of humanity's long journey from the caves of Earth to the stars, driven by curiosity, compassion, and an unshakable belief that the universe was vast enough for all its children. We'll protect you, he declared, his voice carrying across the plains to both human and alien ears. That's what humans do. We don't turn away those who seek help, especially when children are in danger. The Relani leader's light patterns exploded in brilliant colors that needed no translation, pure gratitude and hope reborn. Round them, human colonists nodded their agreement, already planning how to shelter their unexpected guests. None of them realized they had just signed their own death warrants. The peaceful morning on New Haven shattered when the colony's orbital sensors screamed warnings across every channel. Dr. Kim Hanna was sharing breakfast with the Relani refugees when the alarms began their haunting wail. Of the cafeteria, she watched in horror as the sky itself seemed to darken. They came like a swarm of metallic predators, dozens of massive warships that blotted out the twin suns. The Dominion fleet moved with terrifying precision. Their vessels shaped like enormous beetles with razor-sharp edges and glowing red weapon ports. The largest ship dwarfed New Haven's tallest buildings, its hull scarred from countless battles across the galaxy. Colony-wide emergency alert. Commander Lee Daeho's voice echoed through every speaker system. All civilians report to designated safe zones immediately. This is not a drill. Families rushed through the streets, parents clutching their children, while emergency services guided them toward the underground shelters. The Relani refugees huddled together, their crystalline bodies flickering with patterns of pure terror. They knew what was coming. They had seen this nightmare before on their own world. In the command center, Communications Officer Park Minho's hands shook as he received the incoming transmission. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the scarred face of Admiral Vextar. The Korthok commander's reptilian features were twisted into a predatory grin, his yellow eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. Humans of New Haven, his voice hissed like steam from a broken reactor. You harbor criminals who defied the rightful order of the Dominion Empire? Surrender the Relani terrorists immediately, or your pathetic colony will burn like their homeworld. Commander Lee stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. Behind him, his officers waited for orders, their faces pale but resolute. Admiral Vextar, these beings came to us seeking refuge. They're not criminals, they're survivors. We offer them the same protection we would give any sentient life. The alien's laugh was like breaking glass. Foolish mammals, your compassion will be your destruction. You have 1 hour to deliver the Relani, or we will demonstrate why the Dominion has ruled for 1,000 years. Lee's response was broadcast across all frequencies, ensuring every ship in the fleet could hear his words. We don't abandon those who seek our protection. Find another way. The first plasma bolts struck at dawn. Colony Defense Captain Choi Gi-won watched from the command bunker as their meager defenses crumbled like paper in a hurricane. New Haven's 3 patrol ships, little more than armed shuttles, launched valiantly to meet the enemy. They lasted exactly 43 seconds before being vaporized by the fleet's main guns. "Shields at 30% and falling," reported Chief Engineer Yoon Sung-ho, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought to keep their protective barriers online. "Sir, we can't withstand this kind of firepower. Our shields were designed for asteroid impacts, not military-grade plasma cannons." The colony shook as massive explosions rippled across the landscape. The Dominion's bombardment was systematic and merciless. Power plants, communication arrays, and defensive positions disappeared in brilliant flashes of superheated gas. Within minutes, New Haven's ability to fight back was completely eliminated. "All civilians to the emergency shelters." Commander Lee's voice cracked over the failing intercom system. But his words came too late. Dominion dropships screamed through the atmosphere like falling meteors, their hulls glowing cherry red from atmospheric entry. They landed in the colony's main plaza, disgorging platoons of Korthok soldiers clad in powered armor. The reptilian warriors moved with deadly grace, their weapons scanning for targets. What followed was not a battle. It was systematic terror. The Korthok herded terrified families from their hiding places, forcing them at gunpoint into the central square. Children cried for their parents while adults tried desperately to shield their young ones. The Relani refugees were dragged from the shelters where humans had hidden them, their ethereal forms dimming with despair. Admiral Vexstar himself descended from his flagship, his massive form towering over the cowering civilians. His scales gleamed like black metal, and his claws scraped against the pavement as he walked among the prisoners. "Behold the price of defying the Dominion," he announced, his voice amplified by his armor's speakers. "These creatures you sought to protect our enemies of galactic order. Watch as justice is served." The executions began without ceremony. One by one, Korthok soldiers raised their weapons and fired. The Relani fell silently, their light fading like dying stars. Some humans tried to intervene, throwing themselves between the soldiers and their intended victims. 8-year-old Park Suman broke free from her mother's desperate grasp. When she saw the young Relani she had befriended cowering in terror, alien child still clutched her stuffed rabbit, its soft fur now stained with tears of liquid light. "Ah!" Suman screamed, throwing her small body in front of the trembling Relani. "Don't hurt him. He's just a baby." "Ow." The Korthok soldier paused, his weapon trained on the defiant human child. For a moment, something almost like respect flickered in his reptilian eyes. Then Admiral Vexstar's voice cut through the silence. "Kill them both. Let these mammals learn the cost of their misguided mercy." The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger. Dr. Kim Hannah watched in horror from the communications bunker where she had taken refuge. The security feeds showed everything, the executions, the terror, and now a human child about to die for showing compassion to an alien refugee. Her hands trembled as she activated the emergency quantum relay transmitter, knowing it would give away her position but unable to remain silent. "This is Dr. Kim Hannah of New Haven Colony." She spoke into the transmitter, her voice breaking with emotion. "We are under attack by the Dominion Empire. They're executing civilians, human and alien alike. Children are dying because we chose to show mercy to refugees. If anyone receives this message, remember what happened here. Remember that we died trying to do what was right." The plasma beam lanced through the square, and little Park Suman fell beside her alien friend, the stuffed rabbit tumbling from lifeless fingers. "They're killing our children," Hannah whispered into the transmitter, tears streaming down her face. "They're killing us all for showing mercy. Please, someone. Make them pay for this." The bunker door exploded inward as Korthok soldiers stormed her position. Hannah had just enough time to slam her hand down on the transmission button before plasma fire consumed the communications equipment. The quantum relay dish, hidden in the colony's lower levels, continued broadcasting her final message across the void of space. The signal raced toward human space at faster-than-light speed, carrying with it the recorded horror of New Haven's destruction. In 6 months, it would reach Earth and ignite a fury that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. But for now, New Haven burned in silence, its 50,000 souls reduced to ash and memory. The Dominion fleet departed as quickly as it had arrived, leaving behind only smoking ruins and the lesson that compassion in their universe was a crime punishable by death. They had no idea they had just awakened humanity's darkest angels. The quantum relay message from New Haven arrived at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station on a Tuesday morning that would forever change human history. Communications specialist Lee Min-jun was sipping her morning coffee when the automated systems flagged an emergency transmission from the outer colonies. What she saw on her screen made her hands shake so violently she dropped her mug, sending hot liquid splashing across the control panel. Within an hour, recording was racing through secured channels toward the presidential palace in Geneva. The footage was grainy, transmitted through damaged equipment, but the horror was crystal clear. 2-year-old Park Suman falling beside her alien friend. Families executed for showing mercy. Dr. Kim Hanna's desperate final words echoing across the void of space. President Moon Yemin sat in the emergency council chamber, her face pale as marble as the transmission played for the 7th time. Round the circular table, defense ministers, colony representatives, and military commanders watched in stunned silence. Some wept openly, as others sat frozen, their minds unable to process what they were seeing. 50,000 people, whispered Defense Minister Kang Min-soo, his voice barely audible. An entire colony gone because they helped refugees. The footage had already leaked beyond official channels. Across human space, from the bustling cities of Mars to the ice miners of Europa, from the agricultural worlds of Alpha Centauri to the research stations orbiting distant stars, humanity watched their children die for showing compassion. The response was unlike anything in recorded history. On Mars, in the deep copper mines of Olympus Mons, 30-year-old Kang Junho was operating his excavator when his foreman's voice crackled over the CUM system. All crews to the surface. Emergency. Broadcast from Earth. Junho climbed out of the mine shaft along with 300 other workers, their faces still streaked with red Martian dust. They gathered in the main cafeteria where a massive holographic display showed the transmission from New Haven. As little Park Suman's final moments played out, grown men who had spent their lives carving metal from rock began to weep. "That could have been my daughter," Junho whispered, thinking of his 5-year-old girl back in the habitat domes. Without another word, he walked to the recruitment office that had been empty for months. By evening, every miner on the station had enlisted in the Colonial Defense Force, Europa. Station experienced the same transformation. Dr. Shin Yujin was conducting research on extremophile bacteria in the subsurface ocean when her assistant burst into the laboratory with tears streaming down her face. The footage played on every screen throughout the station in the hydroponics bays, the residential quarters, the command center. Scientists who had dedicated their lives to peaceful research abandoned their experiments to join the medical corps. "I became a doctor to save lives," Yujin told her, shocked colleagues as she submitted her military application. "Now, I need to save lives in a different way." The phenomenon spread like wildfire across human civilization. Farmers on agricultural worlds left their fields to learn weapons maintenance. Cargo haulers converted their ships into troop transports. Teachers became drill instructors. Artists painted recruitment posters. Even children too young to serve organized fundraisers for the families of New Haven. But the transformation went deeper than simple rage or revenge. Humanity had discovered something fundamental about itself, that their greatest strength and their greatest weakness were the same thing. Their compassion made them vulnerable, but it also made them utterly relentless when that compassion was violated. Admiral Yoon Tae-young stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon, his decorated uniform bearing the ribbons of a dozen colonial conflicts. His face was carved from granite, his eyes reflecting a cold fury that made seasoned generals step back. "Madam President," his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty, The people are demanding action. Not just military action they want. Justice. They want the galaxy to understand that harming human children is a line that cannot be crossed. President Moon studied the preliminary mobilization reports. In just 2 weeks since the New Haven footage aired, over 2 million civilians had volunteered for military service. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels were retooling for warship construction. Peaceful research stations were converting their laboratories into weapons development facilities. Admiral, I'm authorizing the largest military mobilization in human history. You'll have unlimited resources, unlimited authority, but I want one thing understood. We're not becoming monsters to fight monsters. We protect civilians. We follow the rules of war, and we show the galaxy what true strength looks like. Luna. Base transformed overnight from a peaceful way station into the largest military staging area humanity had ever created. Massive dreadnoughts that had existed only in theoretical designs were being constructed in orbital shipyards. Troop transports arrived daily, carrying volunteers from every corner of human space. The flagship Righteous Thunder dominated the assembly area, its hull bristling with weapon systems that incorporated the most advanced human technology. Surrounding it, hundreds of other warships formed battle groups with names that spoke to humanity's resolve, justice for Suman, New Haven's fury, mercy's price. Admiral Yoon walked through the ship's corridors, observing his crew. Former miners operated plasma cannons with the same precision they had once used to extract ore. Ex-teachers coordinated tactical displays with the patience they had shown to unruly students. Scientists who had studied peaceful phenomena now calculated firing solutions with deadly accuracy. Sir, his aide Captain Kim Dong-yuk approached with the final mobilization numbers. 2.3 million volunteers have passed training. The fleet comprises over 800 combat vessels. Every major colony has contributed ships, supplies, or personnel. President Moon's final address to the assembled fleet was broadcast across human space, standing before the massive viewport of Luna Base's command center. With Earth's blue marble hanging in the background, she spoke words that would echo through history. The Dominion Empire believes they can murder our children for showing compassion. To strangers, they think mercy is weakness. They're about to learn the difference between weakness and restraint. Her voice carried across every ship, every station, every human settlement. You carry with you not just the hopes of humanity, but our values. Show them what happens when you harm a human child. Show them what true justice looks like, Admiral. Yoon stepped forward, accepting the ceremonial command codes that gave him authority over the largest human military force ever assembled. The weight of 2 million volunteers, 800 warships, and 50 billion human souls rested on his shoulders. Fleet command to all vessels, his voice rang through space as the formation began to move. Destination: Dominion space. Mission: justice for New Haven. Remember what we're fighting for, not conquest. Not territory, but the right of innocent beings to seek mercy and find it. The human fleet launched from Luna Base like an unstoppable tide of metal and fury. Behind them, Earth continued its preparations for what everyone knew would be a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Shipyards worked around the clock, factories retooled for military production. Children in schools learned the names of the New Haven dead, but this wasn't just about revenge. This was about establishing a fundamental principle that would reshape galactic civilization. That compassion was not weakness, mercy was not vulnerability, and those who harmed children in the name of power would face the full wrath of humanity. Dominion Empire was about to discover why you should never mistake human kindness for human weakness. The Dominion's Fourth Fleet is patrolling the Kepler 186 system when their sensors detected the approaching human armada. Admiral Vextar lounged in his command chair aboard the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominance, confident that these soft mammals would flee at the first sight of his superior firepower. After all, they had crushed New Haven without losing a toity. Single ship. Sir, we're detecting 800 human vessels approaching at maximum burn, reported his tactical officer, a young Korthok whose scales still bore the bright green of youth. They're not responding to our surrender demands. Vexstar's reptilian features twisted into a cruel grin. Foolish creatures. They come seeking revenge for their pathetic colony. Show them the same mercy we showed New Haven? None at all. Battle began at 0600 hours when the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Captain Oh Sung-won stood on the bridge of his destroyer, Righteous Fury, watching the massive Dominion ships spread across his tactical display, like a constellation of death. His crew was a mix of former miners, teachers, and scientists, people who had never fired a shot in anger, but who now burned with righteous purpose. All weapons, target the flagship, Sung-won ordered, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. Remember what they did to our children. The space between the fleets erupted in brilliant flashes of plasma fire and torpedo explosions. The Dominion ships were larger, more heavily armed, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Human vessels, charged directly into the teeth of their defensive fire, absorbing punishment that should have sent them fleeing. The Righteous Fury shuddered as Dominion plasma bolts tore through her armor plating. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as damage reports flooded in from every section. Chief Engineer Park Sung-ho's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we've lost main power. Shields are down to 15%. We're hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Sung-won watched his tactical display as human ships around him fell to enemy fire, but each dying vessel took multiple Dominion ships with it. These weren't random acts of desperation. They were calculated sacrifices, each one designed to weaken the enemy formation. Sir, we're taking heavy fire from that battlecruiser, reported Weapons Officer Kim Jin-yuk, pointing to a massive Korthok vessel that was systematically destroying human frigates. Our weapons can't penetrate her armor at this range. Sung-won looked at his crew, good people who had volunteered to leave their families behind for this moment. He thought of little Park Soo-men, offering her stuffed rabbit to an alien child. He thought of Dr. Kim Hannah's final transmission, begging the universe to remember their sacrifice. All hands? This is the captain, he announced over the ship's intercom. We're going to ram that battlecruiser. Every life we take with us is one less monster that can harm innocent people. It's been an honor serving with you all. The Asterisk Righteous Fury Asterisk turned toward the enemy battlecruiser, her damaged engine straining to build velocity. Dominion gunners poured fire into the approaching destroyer, but Sung-won held course. At the last moment, he opened a channel to all human ships in the battle for Park Soo-men. He transmitted, his voice carrying across the void as his ship struck the battle cruiser's hull at nearly a quarter light speed. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star, vaporizing both vessels instantly. The Righteous Fury's sacrifice had torn a hole in the Dominion formation, allowing human cruisers to pour through and engage the enemy at close range. Admiral Vexstar watched in growing horror as his superior fleet was systematically dismantled by these insane humans. They fought with a fury he had never encountered, showing no regard for their own survival. When cornered, they rammed his ships. When outnumbered, they fought harder. When dying, they took as many enemies with them as possible. Sir, we've lost 60% of our fleet, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking with disbelief. The humans are still advancing. They're not retreating despite massive casualties. For the first time in his military career, Vexstar felt something he had never experienced before: fear. These humans were not like other species he had conquered. They didn't surrender when faced with superior force. They didn't flee when the odds turned against them. Fought like creatures possessed, driven by something far more powerful than mere survival instinct. All ships withdraw to hyperspace, he ordered, abandoning the field of battle for the first time in his life. We'll regroup at the core worlds. But there would be no regrouping. What followed was a campaign that rewrote everything the galaxy knew about warfare. General Nam Min-zo, a brilliant tactical mind who had once taught military history at the Seoul Academy, coordinated simultaneous strikes on 17 Dominion worlds. Human fleets appeared out of hyperspace like avenging angels, their ships bearing the names of New Haven's dead. On Vorthok VII, human marines stormed the planetary capital while carefully evacuating civilian populations to safety zones. Unlike The Dominion's brutal tactics, human forces followed strict rules of engagement that protected non-combatants. Surrender was accepted. Prisoners were treated according to galactic conventions. Medical aid was provided to enemy wounded. The Dominion's military commanders couldn't understand this behavior. They had built their empire on fear and brutality, expecting the same from their enemies. When Major Lee Hun-jin led the assault on Korthok Prime's orbital defense platforms, captured Dominion soldiers cowered in their cells, expecting torture and execution. Instead, they received medical treatment. "And hot meals? Why do you heal us?" asked a wounded Korthok officer, as a human medic tended to his injuries. "We destroyed your colony. We killed your young ones." Major Hunjin looked down at the confused prisoner, his face hard but not cruel. "Because we're not you. We don't murder children. We don't execute prisoners. That's what makes us different, and that's why we're going to win." The psychological impact of human mercy proved more devastating than any weapon. Dominion soldiers began surrendering in large numbers, preferring human captivity to dying for leaders who showed them no loyalty. Entire fleets defected when they realized the humans offered genuine amnesty to those who laid down their arms. World after world fell to human forces. The Dominion's 1,000-year empire, built on fear and maintained through brutality, crumbled like a house of cards when faced with an enemy that combined overwhelming force with unwavering principles. Their victims, the countless species they had oppressed, rose up in rebellion when they saw that the mighty Dominion could be defeated. Admiral Vextar's flagship was cornered above his homeworld of Korthok Prime, surrounded by a dozen human cruisers. His crew looked to him for orders, but for the first time in his life, the great admiral had none to give. Communications. Officer received an incoming transmission from the human fleet commander, Admiral Vextar. "This is Admiral Yoon Tak-yeon of the Human Expeditionary Force. You are ordered to surrender your vessel and prepare to face justice for war crimes committed against civilian populations. Will receive fair treatment according to galactic law." Vextar stared at the tactical display showing his surrounded ship. His empire was gone, his fleets destroyed. His worlds occupied by an enemy that fought with the fury of demons, but treated prisoners with the mercy of saints. He had awakened something in humanity that he never could have imagined, a species that could wage total war while never losing their moral center. "Signal the human fleet," he told his communications officer, his voice hollow with defeat. The Dominion Empire surrenders. The 1,000-year reign of terror was over. Humanity had proven that compassion and strength were not opposites, but two sides of the same coin. The galaxy would never be the same. The Grand Courthouse on Centauri Prime had never witnessed anything like this before. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive chamber, their various forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Crystalline beings sat beside insectoid creatures, while aquatic species observed from specially designed water tanks. All had come to witness justice for the crimes committed by the Dominion Empire. Admiral Vextar stood in the defendant's dock, his once-proud reptilian form now hunched with defeat. The scales that had once gleamed like polished armor were now dull and scarred. Around him sat his former officers, each one facing charges for their role in the systematic destruction of peaceful worlds. Judge Kong Murray, real black robes flowing, as she entered the courtroom, commanded absolute silence with her presence. A veteran of humanity's colonial court system, she had volunteered to oversee this historic trial. The weight of galactic justice rested on her shoulders. "This tribunal recognizes the testimonies of survivors from 17 worlds," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We have heard accounts of genocide, the deliberate targeting of civilians, and the execution of children whose only crime was showing compassion to refugees. The evidence presented had shaken, even hardened war veterans. Holographic displays showed the destruction of entire cities, families torn apart, children murdered for protecting alien friends. The most damning evidence came from Dr. Kim Hanna's recovered transmission, her desperate final words echoing through the courthouse as delegates wept openly. The defendant, Admiral Vextar, Judge Kong continued, "You commanded the forces that destroyed New Haven Colony. 50,000 human civilians died because they chose to protect refugees, How do you answer these charges? Vexstar raised his massive head, his yellow eyes no longer holding their former arrogance. I followed the laws of the Dominion Empire. Those humans harbored enemies of the state. Children, Judge Kong's voice cut through his excuse like a blade. You murdered children. 8-year-old Park Suman died trying to protect an alien refugee no bigger than herself. What law justifies that? The former admiral's silence spoke, louder than any words. Around the courtroom, representatives from species that had suffered under Dominion Rule watched with satisfaction as their oppressor finally faced consequences. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with witness after witness describing atrocities committed across the galaxy. When Judge Kang finally read the verdict, her words were broadcast to every world in known space. For the crime of genocide against civilian populations, for the systematic murder of children, and for crimes against sentient life itself, this court sentences Admiral Vexstar and his co-conspirators to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. You will live to see the peace your victims died trying to create, and you will know that their sacrifice was not in vain. As the former Dominion leaders were led away in restraints, the galaxy began the long process of healing. The Relani survivors, whose desperate plea for help had triggered this cosmic war, were granted a beautiful new homeworld in human space. They named it Suman, in honor of the little girl who had died protecting one of their children. The planet bloomed with crystal, cities that grew like living things from the fertile soil. Relani architecture flowed in organic curves that seemed to dance with the wind, while human settlements nearby featured the clean lines and practical design humanity was known for. Children from both species played together in gardens where earth flowers grew, alongside alien plants that sang in harmonious tones. But the war had changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Other species now approached human space with a mixture of respect and fear. They had witnessed the fury that could be unleashed when human children were threatened. They would not soon forget. Ambassador Park Jin-yuk filed his monthly report from the Galactic Council chambers on Vega Prime. The other delegates treat us differently now, he wrote. They listen when we speak. They consider our opinions seriously. But I see something else in their eyes. Fear. They've seen what we become when our children are threatened. They won't forget. Indeed, applications for alliance with humanity had tripled since the war's end. Species that had once ignored human diplomatic overtures now sought protection under human shields. The galaxy had learned that humanity's mercy came with a price, crossed the line, and faced their unlimited wrath. 5 years after the war's end, Admiral Yoon Tae-yoon stood before the rebuilt New Haven Memorial. Colony had been reconstructed, exactly as it was before, but now it served as both a living community and a shrine to those who had died. The wall of names stretched for hundreds of meters, each of the 50,000 victims remembered in polished stone, at the center etched, in gold letters that caught the light of the twin suns, was Park Suman's name. Below it, her favorite stuffed rabbit had been carved in relief, a symbol of the innocent compassion that had changed the galaxy forever. Dr. Kim Hanna approached the memorial, carrying a bouquet of earth roses and Relani light flowers. She had survived the massacre by hiding in the ruins for 3 days, living on rainwater and emergency rations while Dominion troops searched for survivors. Her testimony at the trial had helped convict the war criminals, and now she served as director of xenological relations, ensuring that no species would ever again face extinction for seeking human protection. Ma'am, her aide Major Lim Sunwoo asked quietly as they stood before the memorial, do you think we've become too feared? Some of the alien ambassadors seem nervous around us now. Anna watched as Relani and human children played together in the memorial garden, their laughter mixing with the gentle chimes of alien wind sculptures. A young Relani child ran up to her, its crystalline form glowing with happiness. It offered her a flower that sparkled like captured starlight. Thank you, little one, she said, accepting the gift with a smile. The child beamed and ran back to join the game with its human friends. Better feared for our strength than pitied for our weakness, Hannah finally answered her aide's question. The galaxy knows now, harm our innocent and face our fury, but show us friendship and receive our protection. That's the lesson they needed to learn. As the twin suns set over New Haven, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the memorial's eternal flame flickered in the evening breeze. The flame had burned continuously since the colony's rebuilding, fed by solar collectors that ensured it would never be extinguished. Children from a dozen different species came to place flowers at the memorial each day, learning the story of Park Suman and the refugees she died protecting. They learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. The inscription beneath the eternal flame captured humanity's new role in the galaxy. They died showing mercy to strangers. We lived to ensure that mercy was not in vain. The galaxy had learned that humanity's compassion and fury were two sides of the same coin. Cross that line, harm their children, threaten the innocent under their protection, and face the full weight of human wrath. But approach with friendship, seek their aid, show respect for life and dignity, and receive protection that would move mountains and span light years. The Dominion Empire was gone, reduced to a cautionary tale told around campfires. On distant worlds, in its place grew something better, a galaxy where mercy was not seen as weakness, where protecting refugees was considered heroic, and where the strong stood ready to defend the weak. And at the center of it all stood humanity, no longer the naive newcomers to galactic civilization, but its fierce guardians, ready to unleash hell itself on anyone who dared harm a child. The end.